In my lifetime, that's the second time a gun has been pointed at me.
A Baltimore man telling FOX45 his experience getting carjacked, his plea to lawmakers to change the laws on the books.
2 more arrests made this week in the Brooklyn day mass shooting, pressing Governor Wes Moore on how to deal with the juvenile crime crisis.
And a Harford County councilman trying to change how long officials can stay in office, why he says it's the right move for his community.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
We're following some breaking news. A 22-year-old man shot on East North Avenue. Officers responding to a shot spotter alert just before 8:30 tonight and found the man with multiple gunshot wounds. He was taken to a nearby hospital. Fox 45 will continue to follow this story and bring you updates both on air and online.
The problem I'm finding is Maryland's legislator. It best be changed come January.
An elderly Baltimore man fed up with lawmakers after he says he came face to face with an accused juvenile killer. Good evening, I'm Maxine Stryker.
And I'm Vincent Hill. Now, that man says current juvenile laws put his life in danger and could have led to the death of another man. Now he's calling for changes in Annapolis.
He's like this, shaking.
69-year-old Larry Haynes, thankful to be alive after being carjacked at gunpoint in front of his house.
In my lifetime, that's the second time a gun has been pointed at me.
Haynes was sitting inside his truck just after 11:30 the night of August 17th.
For number 1 juveniles wearing ski mask of a suspect.
While police were taking his report, reports of another armed robbery 2 miles away just after midnight.
I was standing right outside the fence with the police, the detective and all. I heard the call, man shot in Canton.
57-year-old Daryl Benner shot and killed while his nephew was getting robbed by a group of teens.
That's when the one guy with the gun, started waving it in my face.
That shooter captured on this surveillance video. Fox 45 showed the video to Haynes.
That's him.
Haynes convinced he came face to face with an alleged killer, but he's putting the blame on someone else.
Jill Carter, she's the main culprit.
I think that police and prosecutors need to be better educated if they're believing that they can't do anything.
Calling out lawmakers for current juvenile laws, preventing the arrest of youth in some cases, are putting them back on the streets after committing a serious crime.
I come to the conclusion the problem I'm finding is Maryland's legislator. If they hadn't changed them laws last year, we wouldn't have all these problems this year.
Haynes says he expects change next legislative session. Are the lawmakers who once had his support no longer will?
It best be changed come January. Y'all out of there as far as I'm concerned, because I ain't voting for you.
Well, juvenile violence has spiked in Baltimore this summer with a number of incidents in recent weeks. On August 2nd, police say 3 teens assaulted a woman and attempted to carjack her in Brooklyn. Later that night, 5 teens were arrested after leading police on a chase through Anne Arundel County in a stolen Kia. Last Wednesday, 3 teens were arrested after allegedly shooting at police from a stolen car and fleeing to a nearby home in Northeast Baltimore. 2 of the suspects are under 18, and police say both have previously been arrested for auto theft.
And that crime spreading to Baltimore County as well. Last week, Fox 45 first broke the story of an 11-year-old responsible for multiple car thefts. Now, police reports show the 11-year-old was a suspect in at least 17 auto thefts, burglaries, robberies, and other offenses. And one report, police say the child was seen driving a stolen Kia on the wrong side of the road trying to get away from police. Eventually, he crashed into another car, and due to his age, police released him to his mom.
Local law enforcement and prosecutors across the state say they're helpless when it comes to holding kids accountable for their actions. State's attorneys saying that Maryland's juvenile justice laws are handcuffing them, making it impossible to address the problems.
What we're realizing when we talk to young people is that young people, the juveniles, know there's nothing that we can do.
They know that, nothing's really going to happen to them if they keep their crime in a certain limit of types of crime.
They come in, we can't detain them. They're back in the community the next day. They get picked up for the second one. Can't detain them. They're back in the community again the next day.
And those prosecutors specifically highlighting these laws that need to be changed. The Juvenile Reform Act, which prevents kids 13 and under from being charged with most crimes in the Child Interrogation Act, which keeps police from questioning juveniles without a parent or an attorney. They had an opportunity to amend those laws in the last session, but they didn't.
And despite the calls for change, the governor says there will not be a special session to change juvenile justice policy. However, representatives from state's attorney's offices, law enforcement, and the Department of Juvenile Services are expected to participate in the hearing this month to create a plan for addressing the crisis.
Right now, 4 young people are behind bars in Baltimore facing charges for their alleged role in the Brooklyn Day mass shooting. The teens are all between ages of 14 and 18 years old. This week, police arrested one of those 18-year-olds and a 14-year-old in connection with that mass shooting. The 14-year-old was arrested at Patterson High School. The 18-year-old, Aaron Brown, was already in custody for an attempted murder back in May. Neither of the suspects were charged with the fatal shots that killed 2 people. Fox 45 has learned that the 14-year-old was wearing an ankle monitor and was under the supervision of Juvenile Services at the time of his arrest. And despite these arrests this week, Acting Commissioner Worley says their investigation is far from over.
I want to be very clear, this investigation is not ending anytime soon. Every tool in our tool belt will be used to identify and apprehend those responsible for this horrific and tragic incident.
Worley says police are still searching for 6 more suspects in connection with that shooting.
And these arrests, they come as the frustration with juvenile justice laws continues to build. Critics of the current juvenile justice laws say there needs to be changes. With lawmakers set to return to Annapolis in January, many people are wondering, what will Governor Wes Moore do?
Is he going to side with the Democrats in the legislature who are more progressive, like Senator Jill Carter? Or is he going to side with common sense and reason and the state's attorneys from all across the state who are saying the laws on the books right now are not making the community safer?
Fox 45 has sent questions to the governor's office asking about what changes need to be made to hold juveniles accountable. In response, the governor's office sent a statement saying the governor will continue working with legislators and community leaders to bring solutions that provide real measures of accountability. And we want to know what you think ahead of the next legislative session. What would you like the governor to do about juvenile crime? Listen to prosecutors or make no changes to the law. Right now, 94% of voters say listen to prosecutors. Head to foxbaltimore.com/vote to weigh in.
And the Brooklyn Day mass shooting is just one case in a string of youth crimes in Baltimore. Fox 45's Taylor Stewart gives us a closer look at some of the recent crimes raising concern.
You don't have to move too far, but I just got to get to that pole with this.
Teenagers falling on both spectrums of Baltimore's juvenile crime crisis. This week, a 14-year-old was sitting in class when police arrested them in connection to the Brooklyn Day mass shooting. And on Friday, a 12-year-old shot in the back outside of a stadium at Dunbar High School's first football game of the season.
A victim being a juvenile, and then we're also talking about the offenders being juveniles, and so this crime wave has really swept into the juvenile ranks.
The victim is now one of more than 70 young people injured in a shooting this year in Baltimore. It's not yet clear who pulled the trigger, but former Maryland Attorney General Doug Gansler says the state's juvenile crime laws have sent a crystal clear message.
They're sort of cloaked in this idea, well, I'm a juvenile, so I'm outside of the criminal justice system. So you have to have punishment. It doesn't mean you're putting them in adult facilities.
Just this week, Fox 45 obtained this video of an 11-year-old accused of stealing and crashing a car before police released the child without punishment, saying they could not charge him because of the state's Child Interrogation Protection Act. The law stops police from questioning or charging a minor with a violent crime until a parent or guardian is contacted, and that child has consulted with an attorney. State prosecutors say it's helped young people usurp the justice system.
How do you find that balance?
Well, parents need to get involved way earlier in this system, or we wouldn't have 12-year-olds stealing cars. And so I think if, as long as there's probable cause to believe that that juvenile has committed a crime, a violent crime, we're talking about armed crimes, then as long as they're in the room, the interview room, and they're being taped, and the interview is, tell me what happened, and you know the conversations that you would have, the judge ultimately will see, was that confession, if you will, or information coerced, or was it not?
As Baltimore City Schools' first week of the new school year ends in a shooting that sent players, fans, and families running from gunfire, Gansler says that added pressure now falls back on law enforcement.
We need to have school resource officers, not only at the high schools, but at the middle schools and the elementary schools, so that the communication between the school and the police and law enforcement can be enhanced. Because
Taylor Stewart, Fox 45 News.
And there's growing calls for parents to be held accountable for kids accused of crimes who can't be prosecuted. Legal experts are split on whether it's a viable solution.
I think it will have some legal hurdles, but realistically, I think there should be some punitive measures put in place for parents that aren't doing the right things.
I don't agree with that because, like I said, the same prosecutorial officers will prosecute that parent for disciplining their child in hopes that the child doesn't involve themselves in criminal behavior. And so you just can't have it both ways.
Fox 45 reached out to every state's attorney in Maryland asking their opinion on juvenile crime. You can see their reactions at foxbaltimore.com.
It has been almost 4 weeks since the body of 37-year-old Rachel Morin was found on a popular walking trail in Harford County. The Harford County Sheriff's Office still trying to find this man here, who they believe killed Morin. Authorities say video shows him leaving the scene of a home invasion and assault in Los Angeles, California, back in March. They say his DNA was found at Morin's crime scene, so anyone who recognizes him should send an email to rmtips@harfordsheriff.org. Also in Harford County, Councilman Aaron Penman hoping to limit how long county leaders can stay in office. But first, he'll have to get term limits on the ballot, and that effort began today at a petition drive in Havre de Grace. At Hopkins Farm Brewery Saturday, a petition drive for term limits got underway.
I just want to make a difference in our community.
Spearheading the effort is Harford County Councilman Aaron Penman.
Well, if you look across the whole state, yeah, Baltimore City has it. There's other jurisdictions that have term limits. And then you go nationally. You see what's going on in D.C. With the age issues that are taking place down there and the career politicians.
Penman believes public office should be a calling, not a career.
It should be a civic responsibility, and that's what I'm hoping these term limits bring to Harford County.
Penman will need to collect 10,000 signatures by June to put term limits on the ballot for voters in 2024.
Right now, what we have on the county charter is for the county executive has term limits. So he has 2 terms. He can take 1 term off and come back for 2 more terms. I want to apply that same logic to the county council.
Ernie Tompkins signed the petition.
I didn't realize how important it was until I saw it on the national level, and I know it's important also on the local level. The politicians get a little bit comfortable in the positions that they're in, and they don't seem to be as connected to the community and their constituents. And having fresh faces and turnover, every 8 years would be a good idea.
Similar efforts are also underway in Montgomery County, and voters